A warm welcome to the Reverend Kelli Driscoll Crews.
Thanks, Kim. I am going to see if I can adjust this presentation slides. Just a second. And while I'm doing that, I will tell you about my hens. My daughter wanted chickens, and so now, of course, I have some pets of my own. And we have 3 dogs, a cat, right now 3 hens, and we live next door to Post Oak Lodge, which is way out in northwest Tulsa. And I have a lot of fun with my yard shenanigans. We have 3 acres, and I relish being able to go outside and sometimes very much annoy my husband because I will eat something I think is edible that's growing in the yard, and he's like, could you please verify before you put the cedar berries in your mouth? Cedar berries are edible. That's the many commercial production agents use that to make gin, just by the way. But see, yeah. Because when I research something, I am ridiculous about it. And I'm going to try to keep us moving along in this presentation because I want to make sure that, let's try this again and see if I can get the presenter tools up. Presenter view. Okay. We're going to do that. All right. Nope. Okay, we're just gonna. So in 2011, I moved here to serve the community of Bethany Christian Church, which is on 6730 South Sheridan. Many of you may have had overlaps in that. That's where I first met Peggy, because I had the distinct pleasure of being the pastor to her mom. And when I first got here, I said, who is doing political work that isn't about people's bodies? And it's not because I don't think we have a Christian responsibility to pray and study scripture and discern the best choices and who we're made to be in the image of God. It's because I want to work with people on issues that aren't going to immediately make us friends or enemies. There is so much in our political world that can bring us together to solve problems, and there are plenty of people working on those issues. But lo and behold, there was nobody working on political work in Tulsa that wasn't about bodies. And so a group of clergy and lay people who spanned from Roman Catholic to Unitarian, okay, got together, and we, for the first year, just met and read things together and developed relationship. Because core to how we do our work in broad-based organizing is relationship. We cannot decide what to work on together if we don't know each other, and more fundamentally, if we have not discovered that we are trustworthy together. Trust oftentimes is assumed because so-and-so knows so-and-so. But if I don't know you personally, if we don't know each other personally, do we really know that we'll be able to count on each other? And it's okay to say no to that. It's okay to admit that to develop trust, it takes time. One of the ways I like to talk about actions work is inspired by this piece of art by an artist on Instagram who goes by Brite. She talks about streams of sustainable activism. She describes it as trauma healing, art and imagination, changing the world, and making our own world. I've used this imagery to talk about what it means to do broad-based, radically nonpartisan politics, because that is what action does. Politics in our culture is boiled down to what?
Animosity.
No, well, yeah. Animosity, what was the other one? Left and right, animosity, Republican versus Democrat. It is often also quickly declarative as good or bad, always in a binary of black and white. This is inherently antagonistic, and in our culture has become winner take all. The way that broad-based organizing understands politics is radically different. We understand that there are many different streams of work in doing justice work, in doing politics work. And we believe that our work overlaps into those two things, and we start to pull those strings of different colors that change over time and dig into relationships so that we can figure it out together. Now, it is fair to push back on the idea that we like to use the word politics because of how much that red, blue, Republican, Democrat, left, right, liberal, conservative animosity is so, like, it's not the tea that's steeped for 3 minutes perfectly. It is the tea that's been sitting in the sun for days, okay? It is entrenched into who we are. But I believe that we have a responsibility to reclaim that work. Politics comes from the word polis. Anybody know what language that's from? Greek. Thank you. 2 years of college, Koine Greek, 4 years of Latin. So don't get me started, okay? Thank you. Polis means Athens or Sparta. It reflected to the city-state in Greece, in that ancient Greco culture. It also refers to the rights and responsibilities of the people within. It's not just like a city. It carries with it civic responsibility. And it is my deeply held belief, that's why I do this work, that we live in a world that wants us to separate those things or mesh them in a very particular way. I just want to say that, of course, our deeply held faith values inform what we do in our political life. And despite the limitations in pop culture about what it means to be civically engaged, voting is not the last word in what we do, but the very bare minimum of what it takes to have a civically engaged world and community. Now, get ready for some ridiculousness, okay? I like to understand broad-based organizing as a star. This star imagery helps me remember that when we have all 9 points of the star working in an annual or semi-annual amount of time, we are going to be the bright light that our community needs, and that develops civic leaders who are doing radically nonpartisan work to identify the issues that we can respond to and do so successfully. In this, we have relational tools and leader identification and development. Every year, we have a 1-day or 2-day training where we introduce the core practices of broad-based organizing tradition, which is individual meetings, house meetings, or small group meetings where you respond to a specific issue or just ask people this question: what's going on in your life? What's a pressure on your family? When was the last time you were asked, what is a pressure on your family? I can tell you a few of ours. We had a rough experience for our daughter in Tulsa Public Schools. We got the right magnet school that all my friends said would be great for her and her particular needs. It was not great. And so over the course of several years, she went to 4 elementary schools trying to figure out which one would be the best fit for her. And she is in a place where she is thriving in 4th grade. She started there in 3rd grade. I can tell you that I can send someone to college for what we pay for this private school, okay? And we have the distinct privilege of being able to afford that for one child because we were the one and done people. But frankly, this is not how things should be. We shouldn't have to be able to afford a college level tuition amount to ensure that our child has what she needs to thrive. And that's not to say wag my finger at Tulsa Public Schools, but our whole state and nationwide, our public schools are often failing our children. And it takes so much more than just one-off responses of being able to afford public school, or yelling at parents, or yelling at teachers, or yelling at whomever is on the TV about how schools are failing. Now, institutional commitments. We always organize institutions, meaning we pull communities like this that have core values that are very clear to them, that then we're not negotiating how we're going to do our work. We're negotiating what the work is. We have different issue action teams. We offer power analysis, identifying the places where we want to grow relationship in order to have the power to act on the issues we've identified. We have accountability sessions. Did anyone attend our 500-person accountability session last January? And then 6 months later, we followed it up with a 600-person accountability session for the mayoral race. For the one last January was for Tulsa Public School Board. We get out the vote. We teach people how to get out the vote, or how to meet with public officials, or how to do a research meeting. And we never, ever, ever have people do those meetings alone, because we are relational and we have to embed that into everything we do. And then we do institution development. So we work with congregations, or this week in my case, it was Forest Orchard Neighborhood Association, to do a deep dive into what their commitments are and their goals are for the year. We're always available to relate to our community in those ways. Now, obviously, if I was looking for something to work on that was going to bring people together, I mean, of course, we would want to work on gun violence. Doesn't that make sense? Of course not. Of course not. No. What happened is, in 2022, a group of women started meeting together because we were afraid to live in our community. I myself was driving down Yale while I watched the police cars rush to St. Francis for the shooting there. I don't want to live that way. And I didn't know how to move forward, but I knew, because of the deep relationships that I had with action leaders, that if we started meeting and we started getting curious, then maybe we'd figure something out. And so for 2 years, we did research, well, about a year and a half, we did research meetings with folks from across the political spectrum, from across the country, from those who had done state questions that were successful in their own state, to the president of the Oklahoma Rifle Association. We met with everybody, and we refused to believe that anyone was stuck in a certain box. We were curious. We asked about personal stories of what it meant to experience gun violence. Myself, when I was in seminary at Brite, was robbed at gunpoint. We told our stories, and we started figuring out what we could do right here in Tulsa that was going to get us further along. As it turned out, we held, as Kim mentioned, Making Tulsa Safer, a civic academy on crime, guns, and suicide prevention. I want to make sure okay, we're good. We met for months with Tulsa police detectives who, frankly, when I first met them, I was a little afraid of. We met with Tulsa Fire Department captains and learned about the very surprising, at least to me, ways that they are interacting with guns on an everyday basis in our community. They're fire department. Why would they? Because people have unsecured guns in their homes, and they call the fire department for some help. Maybe someone fell, maybe they had a fire, and those weapons are not secured. They're just laying around as they get there, and also sometimes used against them. We worked with Family and Children's Services, which is the largest provider of mental health care in the region, and they run what is called the COPES Hotline. Amanda Bradley, who is the vice president there that runs that program, has overseen a strategic expansion of that program in the last 18 months to 2 years. That means that those resources, when someone is in crisis, is more available than it ever has been before. And we worked with Crime Stoppers, which is led by Karen Gilbert, who sees on a regular basis all the different ways that stolen weapons are becoming crime guns. Guns were involved in this is 2023 statistics, and 2024's have just come out, and I'm going to share like one little piece about that, but to get you a baseline of what has happened. 64% of homicides in 2023 involved a firearm. 62% of deaths by suicide were completed with a firearm. 53% of robberies and 40% of aggravated assaults. In 2023, 750 guns were stolen in Tulsa. 65% stolen from a vehicle and 10.5% stolen from a home. The remainder was other larceny events that the police could explain much better than I ever could. So of those 750 guns, at least 396 stolen guns were used to commit a crime in Tulsa in 2023. So what does that mean? That means that the easiest way to ensure that a gun does not become a crime gun is that it is actively secured in one's vehicle or one's home. One of the things that was very important to the police as they were offering this information at our Civic Academy was that oftentimes people want to have their weapon easily available at home. Can get it. Having experienced a gun in my face asking me for my money and my jewelry, I understand why someone would feel that way. The vast majority of those moments, though, of stolen guns were out of vehicles, not out of homes. And so a simple lock, a lockbox, I don't know if it was someone who's a member here or not, but one of the best moments from that Civic Academy was someone walking out with a lockbox that Family and Children's Services had passed out. And frankly, this person did not look like a gun owner to me. I was way into assumptions in the moment. And I said, "Oh, do you have a handgun to go in that lockbox?" And she said to me, "No, but I think my neighbor might. And I'm going to use this to have a conversation with them and pass it along in case they need it." That story is vital to the work that we do. Civic academies are not a one and done workshop about how to solve problems. It's about integrating a sense of practice, moving into ease, of talking about the issues that we are dealing with in our community, and doing that enough regularly that this is just a part of what we do. As a parent, someone invites my kid over, I say, "Hey, do you have any weapons? Are they secured in the home? Okay, thank you. This is just a part of my parenting practices right now. I'm really, concerned about what's happening in our community." So, TPD seized 1,619 firearms in 2023 and responded to 5,276 at least shots heard calls. Those firearms that are seized, if they have not been reported to TPD as stolen, and people don't have their well, it's not the like. Thank you. I'm like VPN. No, that's not right. Your serial number on that report, then those weapons are going to be destroyed. And the sad part is people might really know it's their weapon, but there's no paperwork that can prove it. And so their grandfathers or their great-grandfathers, gun that they learned how to hunt on, is then destroyed. Or in the case of how I learned to shoot, in all this research we did, I asked my father-in-law to take me to the range. And so he taught me how to shoot a handgun with his own father's World War II semi-automatic pistol. I haven't known my husband long enough to know his grandfather, or my father-in-law's father, whose gun that was. But I held in my hand something that was held by him and became deeper in relationship with my father-in-law. And those are the kinds of things that can happen when people don't identify what they have. In 2023, there were 100 deaths by suicide, and 62% involved a firearm. 2 victims were younger than 16. And now this data is from Amanda Bradley with Family and Children's Services. 877 Oklahomans died by suicide in 2023, and Oklahoma ranks 7th in the nation. Okay, 7th in the nation. It's the second leading cause of death for 10 to 24 and 25 to 34-year-olds. It's the 9th leading cause of death overall in Oklahoma. Suicide is preventable. A simple cable lock like you would put on your bicycle, I mean it's a similar device, slows down even if it's your own lock, slows down what's happening enough to give someone 2 to 3 minutes, which oftentimes is all people need to move from I am killing myself to, oh my gosh, what did I almost do? We recognize warning signs. There is a wonderful training that I would recommend any of you you should have for your class. So one time it's called QPR training, and that's offered by Family and Children's Services and other organizations in town. There's COPES, and then the cable lock, and then the gun safe for your car. Having that box and having it attached to your car makes a huge difference. And then the electronic lock box, or like my father-in-law has for his rifles for hunting, you know, he has something that I could fit in if I needed to. Now, this is the newest update from TPD this week, okay? I want you to know that I let Captain Muhlenberg know early on in our work that if he needed a theme song to Where's Your Gun Wednesday videos, I was there for him. He did not take me up on it, but I did notice that they added to these videos a little bit of music at the beginning, and I would like to take credit for that. But this week, this is what Captain Muhlenberg let us know. He has a sense of humor.
Oh, hey, Tulsa. Just doing a little light reading. Got some good news. We ended last year with record low numbers in gun thefts. I'm very excited about that, and this year we hope to do even better. Last year was a fantastic year. Back in 2021, we saw over 700 guns stolen from Tulsans. Then the next 2 years, in 22 and 23, we saw over 600 guns stolen from Tulsans. We realized that that's a problem. So we started this campaign, started informing citizens about how to prepare yourself, how to be better, how to try to not let the bad guys get your gun. So last year was amazing. We saw a 30% reduction in the amount of guns stolen from Tulsans. That's 30% less guns in the hands of bad guys who are out there doing nefarious things. As this map shows, guns were taken from all parts of town. North, east, south, west. Where they are mostly taken is in areas of high concentration of people. Obviously, areas like the mall, because you have lots of parking. Downtown, lots of parking, lots of people. So it's not that these areas are inherently dangerous. What's happened is they're targets of opportunity because lots of people are there, so people break into cars. Cars where we see the largest number of guns stolen. In 2025, we want to see those numbers go even lower. It'd be great if we get another 30% reduction at the end of this year, so together we can help that happen. Please remember a couple of tips. If you're going someplace where you know you're not able to take your gun inside, have some way to lock that in your car. That is just a deterrent and a way to keep those guns out of the hands of bad guys, and always remember to document your serial number. That way, if your gun does happen to get stolen, we can enter that into our NCIC computer system and find that gun, get it back to you, and prosecute the person who stole it with possession of a stolen gun. Thanks very much, Tulsa. You guys be safe.
Oops, hold on, let's see. I don't know if you noticed that, but it was like how to teach your cat about gun safety. Captain Muhlenberg manages all of the social media accounts for TPD, and you will find little gems like that across the platform. And it's part of why he's successful at his work. In our organizing tradition, we have a workshop on what makes a leader. And there are many different things, but the two things that I always turn to again and again is someone who's angry and someone who has a sense of humor. Okay? Yeah. So the thing about anger, though, is it needs to be metabolized. We're not talking about rage. Sometimes we might explode into tears talking about the pressures that are on our families. The third time that we had to change schools for my daughter, I called a friend weeping. I was like, is this really our life? She was like, it's okay, Kelly. By the way, that's one of our action friends that I called first. And laughter and having a sense of humor. If we know what we're angry about and we know what we want to do something about, we also have to have a sense of humor, which allows us to be a little bit humble about ourselves and the work and move forward when there are significant differences, and find the way forward where we make a path by walking, that we make the path by walking quote by Gutierrez. Most of this work that we get to do is making the path by walking and figuring out a way to make the path as wide as possible on so many different issues. When we first identified that we wanted to do something, we were doing all this research trying to figure out what are we going to do that's accomplishable. I had no other way to talk about a goal other than to say, I would like for there to be one fewer death from gun violence or by a gun in Tulsa. That's the point of success. Someone's kid, someone's parent, someone's friend, one fewer death. And as my husband and I were talking about this 30% reduction in crime guns, he's an attorney, so he was like, now, are you talking causation or connection? Or he wanted, I was like, I'm not going to claim that we are solely responsible in action for bringing down that number 30%. What I will say is we invested hours and hours and hours of time to make a path where there were many people able to walk down it and work collaboratively. And now we see that through all of our work, through COPE's work, through TPD's work, through Crime Stoppers' work, through our work, that we made an impact all of us together. And so Emily would, my boss, Emily, who now oversees Tulsa in some ways. We also have a direct supervisor that's in Houston named Liz Valdez. But she's moved to Oklahoma City to reinvigorate the work of our sister organization there called Voice. We have a training on February 8th that is an overlap with one of the classes for the Masters of Art in Social Justice at Phillips Theological Seminary. This is the second year in a row where we've collaborated with Phillips and Reverend Dr. Kathy McCallie to teach this class, to introduce these principles, and to engage in the practices of radically nonpartisan political work. Now, I personally do this out of the conviction of my faith, but we work with a wide variety of community organizations, unions. The SPCA is one of our newest members, because we all see that as we widen the path, we're going to solve problems. And so if you're interested, or you think there's someone you know that might be interested in learning about how to do this work, how to do political work, the work that is ours to do as civically engaged citizens in our community, sign up. It's $15, which is just the cost of lunch, or send someone my way, because I would love to be a complete nerd with Greek words and Latin words and readings that I can recommend to learn more about this. In fact, I want to share one thing. I've got several books. I heard that you are a highly educated group, so I brought some books, okay? You're my people, okay? You're my people. Anybody else 4 years of Latin? Okay, no. All right. So this book, Blessed Are the Organized, by Jeffrey Stout. Jeffrey Stout is a professor emeritus at Princeton Theological Seminary, and it is the gold standard in introducing how the Organizing Institute, which is our network of organizations. There are over 30 organizations in our network, and there's another network that also does the work in this particular way that has over 30 organizations. So nationwide and even into the UK and New Zealand, you will find broad-based organizing groups that are a part of our tradition. In this book, you can read about the history of this tradition, how it has evolved over time, in many ways has become gentler and more respectful than some of our founders may have done the work. Just to connect with you, Kim, I will say, I think it's because the women started moving into spaces they had not been before. There are Disciples of Christ pastors featured in this book, so I highly recommend that. Another book that is okay, it's not quite as good as that one, about what it means for congregations to do community organizing. I generally don't say community organizing because I think it is not a defined enough feature in our, like people, what do you think of when you hear community organizing?
I think of politics.
Politics. I think it often leads people to think of protest work, which is vital to the ecosystem of doing justice work, but it is not the only way to do political work. And so what I usually say is I do civic leadership development that is radically nonpartisan. And then people either shut down or be curious, okay? And you gotta respect it, that's okay. I've got The Light of Freedom, which is a history of the organizing tradition and the Mississippi freedom struggle, by Charles Payne. This is a landmark investigative history of that time. And if you want to learn a little bit about the values, chapter 3 sums it up. And then I just, as a way to get deeper in relationship with our Catholic partners, St. Mary's Outreach Center and Church of the Resurrection are two Catholic institutions that are members. I recently read Let Us Dream by Pope Francis. Obviously, I'm not Roman Catholic, but his words encouraged and convicted me in ways that I didn't know I needed, and it gave me an opportunity also to dig deep with a friend of mine who is Catholic, and he was like, "Oh, I needed this encouragement." So these are some of the few of the many ways that you can dig deeper into this by reading, coming to a training, and now I want to be respectful of your time and say you probably have 2 minutes for questions. Yeah. 15? Okay. Oh, great.
Got a question back here.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Thank you very much for the presentation.
Uh-huh.
I would like to know what thoughts went through your mind with respect to your gun, which was in somewhere else, when you were facing the barrel of someone's gun who was not in their pocket. What went through your mind? Oh, gee, let me have a minute or two to unlock my...
Right. Well, so that is such a great question. I will say that I've had when that happened, I was 23 years old. A group of friends and I had gone to see a movie late, and we were followed from the movie theater. My friend had just inherited a Mercedes-Benz from his grandmother because she had just passed away. And so we seemed to have been a target for what we learned was some kids that were doing this regularly. It was a completely paralyzing moment for me. I didn't know what to do in that moment. I froze like a deer in headlights, and ended up being punched in the midst of it because I was so frozen. They're yelling at me to give them stuff, and I couldn't do it. And it took, I'm 42 now. It was into my late 30s, early 40s that I was able to act on doing something around that story. I have felt completely powerless about how to move things forward because in our organizing tradition, we talk about the world as it is and the world as it should be. And so many of the hot button issues in politics, everyone's functioning way over here, the world as it should be, however they see it. And because I had this trust of community, because I had metabolized that experience and it no longer had a power over me, but I had power for myself, I was able to work forward to see that. Now, I have made as a rule, I don't have a handgun, we have a hunting rifle in our home. And so I've also have the responsibility of living in the world as it is, to watch where I am, to ensure that I teach my child about what to do if someone's shooting near you. You never run in a straight line, y'all. You zigzag, okay? And these are conversations that we've had in age-appropriate ways with our daughter. She's 10 now, and we will continue to have and continue to develop in our family So I personally haven't decided to have a handgun, but I know that there's a lot of folks who have one, and that's how they feel, how they've been able to move forward in life with the threats that are around them. And so, yeah, I don't, does that answer your question at all?
It does a little.
Okay, yeah.
So what does the law say about a justifiable homicide?
So I will say that I am not an attorney. My husband, who is one, likes to remind me that I am not an attorney. There are loads of interpretations based on which state you're in and the federal overlay of laws. But if you feel that you are in harm's way, then in the state of Oklahoma, you have more width of responding than some other states. Let's just say that. But me personally, we live 15 minutes from the closest fire station, and more than that, because we're way out in the country, and more than that, when it comes to, we don't know where TPD might be able to respond or whatever. And so we didn't have a rifle in our home until there was somebody living in the woods that scared the neighbors. I'll just say that. Yeah. Hi.
Well, first off, you'd make a wonderful member of the Challengers class.
Thank you.
Get a little older, maybe.
Yeah.
But when you started, you said you bring in Christians from Catholics to Unitarians. Have you had any luck with charismatic churches or charismatic members joining you, or are you like every other agency? It's hard to get those people involved.
Yeah, so we have had our challenges, and what we do is we just keep showing up, we keep building bridges, and we keep finding the relationships where people can, I go to Fellowship Congregational Church, that's where my daughter chose to go to church after we left Bethany, and you can drive down Harvard and see the signs of the value statements of that community. And when I do this work, I don't expect everybody to have the same theology as I do. In fact, I want to have a broad experience. And so one of the ways that we have expanded, because we are working on stray dogs and building a coalition to respond to that significant issue that if you're in northwest or east Tulsa, stray dogs are a problem. I have not yet heard about significant issues in South Tulsa, but I have heard about coyotes in South Tulsa. So, but the SPCA and the Tulsa Classroom Teachers Association are members of our organization, and having those non-religious entry points for people is helping us expand even further. And we're working around housing issues too. And whether you are at a theologically progressive congregation or a theologically conservative congregation, or what I would describe here as kind of like an in-between, a space where there's a lot of movement around those things, people are coming to us and they owe thousands of dollars in rent, and they have children that will be sleeping in a car. If it doesn't matter where we are theologically or politically, housing is one of those issues that's bringing us together to solve significant issues. So thank you for that question. Yeah, we are definitely, TMM has had that issue, as well as other organizations, and we have too.
Other questions? Okay. All right. Hey, we really appreciate you coming today.
Yeah. Yeah.